So a lot of you may already know me, make me around. My name is Kris Dove. Been with Engineers Nova Scotia for over 15 years now. I'm an industrial engineer, so any of the industrial engineers out there, good to see you joining. Keep it real. I am responsible for a number of different areas at Engineers Nova Scotia, including professional practice, complaints and discipline process, the finance administration components. And originally, I started and implemented the first professional development program back when I started, and probably around 2011, I think, is when we kicked that off. So involved in a bunch of different things, and you can see from my picture there. I usually try not to wear a suit as much as I can. I like to be out hiking, getting outside and exploring Canada as best I can in my off time. So, a bit about me, and again, glad to be here today, and hopefully you'll find this useful session. So, about our agenda, as Christine mentioned, this one session is strictly about CPD modernization. Not talking about a lot of professional practice updates, though. If there are questions, I can certainly entertain them if we have time after. And as Christine mentioned, if you do have questions, you can just put your hand up and we'll put your mic on, or you can type them in. I'd rather address questions as we go. It's, I think, the easiest way, and hopefully I'll be able to answer your questions. If not, we'll table them and bring them back. All right, so I will get right into it here. CPD modernization. So what do we know? We know that the engineering profession, like every profession, is always changing, and we're seeing evolving factors, including changes in regulations and codes and standards, other considerations like environmental impact, public protection, indigenous related issues need to be dealt with, climate change, cybersecurity, other challenges we're seeing politically related south of the border. And the expectation for professionals that we continually educate ourselves and remain competent in whatever area we're practicing in. So whether it's the engineering profession, geoscience, doctors, lawyers, whatever, professional development is something that's an expectation. So for engineers, we want to make sure that we have a program that is going to be relevant and regardless of the role that an engineer may be practicing in, that we'll be able to.
Open it and check the bell?
No, we didn't.
Kris, sorry, you
I got muted.
mute. Yes.
I got muted too. Remember to mute your mics when you come in. So in our previous program, it was really mostly targeted to those who are practicing engineering in truly technical roles, and on full-time basis. And we realize that there's challenges. There's people who after 10 years of being in the engineering profession, a number of engineers end up in leadership roles and have different, maybe not as technical roles as they were in the past. And previous versions of professional development programs were truly more tailored to strictly technical competence, whereas in newer modern programs, it's meant to address other areas instead of just technical competence. So that's what we know, and we realized based on that we needed to look at modernizing our program. We've known that for years. We've had a program that was a bit stale. It wasn't super efficient, and frankly wasn't meeting the standards that we would expect of a modern CPD program. So where do we go? We followed a path to modernization. That's me on the path there in Quebec, trying to climb a mountain up in Gaspésie, number of mountains. So we followed a path to get here, and some of you may have heard this story before. For some of you, it may be new. So really, it started back in spring of 2023 when the Atlantic CEOs of the Atlantic engineering regulators got together and had discussions, and trying to look at ways we can harmonize things, collaborate on things, not just for CPD, but CPD was an area where it was targeted, and we said, you know what, we may not be able to come up with a CPD program nationally, but if we start in the Atlantic provinces, that would be a really good start. So the regulators, the CEOs met on a couple occasions and said, you know what, let's move this forward. Newfoundland took the lead, And they developed what would become known as the draft harmonized CPD requirements document. And that was really first time we've been able to really look at all of our programs and come up with requirements that would hopefully be able to be met in most of the principles be met by all of the regulators in Atlantic Canada. And we thought it was a great idea and something to move forward. So we took that that draft document that was led by Newfoundland, and we moved on to have the CPD committee review that document. They were very supportive of it. It was really the requirements were in the past kind of based off of a New Brunswick, Alberta, a PEGA model where you had different types of categories. You had, remember, informal education, formal education, participation, those kind of things, which are really ways that you gain CPD, not actual ways, learning categories or different areas where you could be practicing. So CPD committee reviewed and we're in support of moving forward. From there, they made a few tweaks, made it a little more Nova Scotia centric, so customized it a little bit, and it was brought to council in September 2023. And council reviewed the document, gave very positive feedback, and said, you know what, this is something we're in support of. So in December of 2023, after they had a second chance to review, council approved the draft document and said, okay, we approve for you to go forward, proceed with planning, do some engagement sessions, and see how we can make this go forward. So you can see we're getting, this is me up in Mount Whitney down in California last year, climbing that's the top of the path to modernization. We're getting there, we're not there yet, we're getting closer. So we did hold engagement sessions, or I held them from June to September last year. Some of you may have attended those sessions. Feedback was great. We got a few ideas of areas we could update the guideline and tighten things up. We had over 450 people register, and over 350 people actually attended those sessions, which were great. Some of you may have attended them in person or virtually. We did have a bylaw vote that was required as part of these changes, which was identified by our legal counsel. And you may remember having seen an email about this. So it was basically we needed to update the bylaws so that the CPD guidelines could be updated and set by council. And the bylaws, as they were previously written, outlined the number of CPD hours that would be required annually, and it was in the bylaws. It said a minimum of 60 hours a year, an average of 240 over 3 years, which was 80 hours a year. So knowing that changes to the program would require a change of those hours, we put in motion a bylaw change process for our registrants. We put that out by email. We had over 1,700 registrants place their voted, and of those, 85% were in favor of the bylaw change, which really removes a reference to a specific number of PD hours and allows council to set those hours. And you're going to see that's a good thing because the hours are being reduced. So we move forward. Bylaw change went through. That was great. There were no issues with that. CPD updates guidelines were then updated based on some of the learnings we had from our engagement sessions and just other discussions we had since the original version was out. In December, we brought the updated CPD guidelines to council, and they voted to approve them and put them in place. So at the top of the hill, I guess the start of the top of the hill, starting January 1st, our modernized CPD program commences. So pretty proud about that. That's where we are today. And I'm going to talk a bit today about what that means, some of the changes, and some of the things that you can expect to see in the future as far as our PD program goes. I see there's some chat going on about the access to the presentation. Hopefully I'll be able to see. I know there's a few people can't see it, so hopefully I'll get access to that. All right, what's new about the program? So as I previously just talked about, and as you'll know, with the previous program, there were different categories, 5 or 6 of them, related to the ways you would gather or participate in CPD. And so be it informal education, formal, those kind of categories. In the new modernized program, there's 4 learning categories. So ethical practice, regulatory, technical, and communications leadership. So those are the 4 new categories. So you'll see that we don't have participation on there, for example, because that would be participating in whatever would be a way you could gain technical learning, or communications leadership. So it's a bit of a different structure, which I think you'll see makes a lot of sense once I get into it and explain it a bit further. Ethical practice is something that is the cornerstone of engineering, of any engineer who's out there, whether you're in a management role or in a technical role. And this is one of the categories. I hate the M word, but it's a mandatory category, ethical as well as regulatory. And these are areas where we are going to be providing numerous supports to registrants, as far as, and I'll talk a bit about courses that we'll have developed, webinars, and so forth. So for ethical practice, it'll be a requirement to have a minimum of 2 PDHs, so professional development hours, an hour in the new program, modernized program, an hour's an hour. In the past, sometimes it would take 2 hours, say for informal education, to count for 1 hour, which is a bit bizarre, but that's one of the things that we're adjusting for the good. You'll hear more about that. Yeah, the first category is just around ethical practice. So these are will be an annual requirement, and as I mentioned, we'll have a number of resources available for members, to registrants, to gain these hours. Some activities that you may take besides just courses offered by us would be in online or other in-person ethics courses. If there's employer-provided programs covering ethics, diversity, sustainable development, respectful workplace, or those other type of related topics. If you have meetings related to ethical practice at your work, that would count. Attendance of EDIA or respectful workplace, sustainable development conferences, workshops, or continuing education offerings, those would all count as well. Activities that wouldn't count for this category would be claiming that you act ethically as part of your practice. That's something that's expected of you as a professional engineer, that you're going to practice ethically. So that wouldn't count. Or claiming you had ethical discussions. So that would be an example of an area that wouldn't count. But any other type of offerings or activities you're involved in would definitely count under that category. So the second category is regulatory learning. So today, attending this session would count as one hour, and you'll see there's only a minimum of 1 PDH for regulatory learning. So by attending today for 2025, you could enter that in. If you fill out the survey after this session, you'll have it automatically updated in our system, and you won't have to do anything additionally. You'll have that 1 hour in place. And this has really been more highlighted in modern CPD programs to ensure that our registrants are knowledgeable about applicable regulatory requirements, which includes acts, bylaws, codes, standards, guidelines, those kind of things. And some acceptable activities that you could participate in would be courses developed by or for engineering regulators. So example, I'll talk about courses we're developing on our learning management platform. Those would count. If you're reviewing changes in regulations, so either national, provincial codes or standards or practice guidelines, those kind of things. If you're involved with or taking courses that increase Indigenous awareness, if you're serving on boards or committees of organizations that have a regulatory focus, that would all count as well. So again, quite a number of ways that this would for registrants to be able to get this 1 hour, and it's a minimum of 1 hour. You can certainly have more than 1 hour, and you'll see there's not category maximums as there has been in the past. There's just a few in ethical and regulatory learning where there are some mandatory minimums, but there's no maximums in the program. So so that's the second category. And again, if you get your hour here today by listening to me, or watching this session later on if you're watching it through our learning management platform. Third category, and this is kind of the hallmark for many registrants, technical learning, and that's that really core learning necessary to maintain technical competency. And we know that, we know that you need to remain technically competent in your area of practice. It's referenced in our codes of standards. Your area of practice may change, may ensure that you're staying current in the most recent codes and standards, regulations, practice, any new practice technologies that come out is certainly important. And we know that this is that taking and participating in these technical type of learnings is really key to maintaining your technical knowledge and skills. And we know that there's some people who, engineers they move into different non-technical roles. That's where the next category I'll talk about will address that. Some of the training or areas that would apply for technical learning would be work involving technical regulations, codes, or standards, involving sustainability, climate change, volunteering on Engineers Nova Scotia practice-related committee and being involved in development of guidelines and technical guidelines. Some learning opportunities covered here could be formal technical education. If you go to technical sales seminars, here's one: first aid, WMIS, or health and safety training would count. So you think, oh, well, I have to do some of this training on my job. That kind of would count, would be helpful for your job and mandatory in a lot of cases, but would also count towards this category, as well as cybersecurity training, for example. Activities that wouldn't be deemed acceptable would be if you're providing the same, so if you have a technical presentation, if you provide it many times, the same presentation, the first time it would count, after that it wouldn't count. And if you're presenting options to clients, so technical options, that's something that wouldn't count either. So pretty much everything else will. And I forgot to mention, and I'll talk a bit more about the guidelines are available on our website, and they do have more information as far as activities that count. And we are going to be updating some more content and creating more content to help support registrants throughout this throughout the program. All right, I see Riley, you have a question. You can go ahead while I have a drink.
Yeah, so you mentioned that this technical learning category can include first aid, WMIS, safety training, cybersecurity training, where many of the safety trainings and first aid expire and you have to retake them. Can you claim it every time you retake it, or similar to the technical presentation, if you give it once, that's it?
Yeah, no, I mean, if you're taking it, if you have to take it every year, every couple of years, certainly it would count, because you're continuing to develop your competence. There's updates that may come for. I know I took a first aid course in the last year, I think, and it was drastically changed from the last time I had taken it, some of the content. So yeah, that would definitely count.
Thank you.
Yeah, good question. Yeah, and if anybody else has any, yeah, I see P.Eng, you have a question?
Oh, yeah. So my question is, does where you take your technical training counts, or it doesn't?
Does where? So something I was going to talk about was later on is we don't see, I don't know if you're talking about physical location. We don't certify providers or courses for our CPD program. If you're taking a, if we audit, we may look into to make sure that they were that you actually did take what you said you were taking, but we don't certify them. So if you're taking something in a different country, that would be fine, as long as you can verify that you've taken the PD. CPD program, and I've felt this way for a long time. Some people just feel like it's a barrier or something that's put in them as an additional requirement that's not necessary, but it's meant to make sure that you're maintaining competence in your area of practice. And I have questions from people sometimes, and they say, well, if I take these 4 courses, it's going to cost me $5,000. Am I going to be good to go? And I say, well, make sure that what you're taking is actually relevant and useful for maintaining or developing areas of competence. Because if you're just taking courses for the sake of meeting hours, it's defeating the purpose of having a professional development program and participating in PD. It's meant to help you develop in areas where you're practicing. So that's why we don't certify courses, because if you're taking a course and you're taking it because hopefully taking it because there's an interest and is relevant to your practice, then that's a relevance of the program. Somebody has a question. I don't know if it's a question. Are you considering using AI to aid our members? And I don't really know how to answer that question other than AI is a topic that we're going to have a guideline developed on use of AI by our members in the future. And stay tuned for more on that. Somebody asks, does delivery of technical training count? I would say if it's not part of your day-to-day job, then yes, but if it's part of your practice, then no. Makes sense to me. I'm going to move on then. I don't see any other questions. And if anybody else has any that I missed, just let me know for the fullness of time here. So moving on to the next category, communication and leadership. This is one where we really didn't have this adequately addressed in our previous program, but we know that communication and leadership is really related to advancing your professional abilities, which could include team building, other non-technical knowledge or skills, and really can improve the learning or management skills of an individual. Some acceptable activities that could be used to satisfy this requirement would be formal business governance and leadership training programs, including maybe MBA or other certifications programs, short seminars, taking webinars on business related practice, leadership, communication, any of those kind of things, offering a learning opportunity to others. So educating this back to that question, if you're educating others, so it's not, if they're not clients, if it's something you do outside of your work on topics of communications, leadership, that would count. And a big one in this category, which there's been questions about this, would be mentoring. So if you're mentoring to assist career development, that's something that would count. And knowing that many of you may mentor now as part of our formal mentorship program, which is kind of going to come to an end as far as the signing off an experience record part when we implement the CBA competency-based assessment project, but which is coming up in the near future. But mentoring, we hope, will still continue, and we're looking at options to continue some sort of a mentorship program where it could be a true mentorship where a senior engineer would work within the IT or a junior engineer and actually mentor them in their career. But that's something that would certainly count. So some activities that wouldn't count would be, and this is one where in the past it did count, would be volunteering and coaching kids sports teams, singing in choirs, or collecting for charity. So that won't count now, and you'll see why, because of the change in the hours. That's always an area that I always touted in the old program, saying, you know, you can get CPD anywhere, you can coach your kid's soccer team, you can be involved in this or that, but that's an area where it's changed now, where that won't count. If you're mentoring individuals within the same organization, so direct reports, if that's part of your job, that's something that wouldn't count. But a lot of other areas to be involved in would count. So, and again, there's much more detail in our CPD guidelines. I'm just giving a quick overview in this in some of the areas. There's a question on volunteering tutoring count. So yeah, if you're tutoring an engineer, almost mentoring them, then there's no reason that that wouldn't count either. Daniel's question there. So the big X, what no longer qualifies? And the answer is there's not a lot of things that don't qualify, but one of them is professional practice. So in the previous program, and you'll see the reason for this when we get into talking about the hours, but professional practice, which is those who are working, must still be recorded and you keep track of it, but it's not eligible as part of the PD hours. So previously, 50 hours a year could be counted towards CPD program for just practicing. And there were people who there's people who maybe practice part-time, they're not working full-time, they're maybe they only want to work part-time. In the previous program, it was very hard for them to meet the number of hours, the 80 hours, when they didn't have that. So that's something that as part of, we know you're in practice, we know a lot of your PD happens on the job, but it's not something that's going to be tracked and allowable under the modernized program. I mentioned this already, community participation. So coaching a sports team, that wouldn't, it's not something that would count. Here's an interesting one. Somebody asked me if donating blood, if they could donate blood, if that would count. And they said in the past, I said, I didn't ever think about that one, but that's something that wouldn't count if we encourage you to give blood and work, at churches, church services, those kind of things, but there's social contributions that wouldn't count under the modernized program. There's primary work duties. So if you're doing things like mentoring on the job or onboarding a new employee, that wouldn't count. And development of a CPD plan. In the previous program there was 5 hours that was there that we kind of put in place just to help people meet the 80 hours that was in the previous program. So
Training.
oh, and I ask you to mute your mic. Somebody's
Gateway, by blue. Okay. Do we?
Yes.
Oh shit.
I know. So I didn't want to send it to you next week and surprise you.
all right. I just muted everyone. Christine, I see is there a question that I missed?
Yeah, there are 2 questions in the chat.
Okay, trying to keep, all right. Yeah, so one question was just about being recorded. So yeah, you should keep track of the work you do, which is most people would probably, as part of their ongoing, work, would keep track of the hours that they're involved in, or at least where they're working. So it's not, you just don't need to submit detailed records of your professional practice hours like you could have done in the past. That's all that means. I think there's another one, but it's a question about CPD. Okay, when the requirements kick in. So yeah, CPD requirements would count the year after the first full year after registration. So for anyone, if they become licensed in the middle of the year, it would only count. It would only the requirement to report would only kick in for that next full calendar year. And I have good news about EITs as well coming up. So stay tuned for that. Don't want to break it. There's another question: is reading a book or listening to a podcast on a relevant topic count? For sure. Yeah, definitely. That's podcasts have been one of the ways people have really moved on to gaining PD, and there are a lot of good engineering podcasts that are out there. So yeah, if you're reading magazines, books, technical journals related to technical topics or leadership or something relevant to your practice, then yeah, that would count. Good question. See another question: some onboarding process into mentoring. Example: engineering students get more than corporate HR requirements. Some of this should count. Yeah, I mean, if part of your job is mentoring students and you're doing that as part of your job, I wouldn't think it would count. But if you're doing it outside of your hours, then and you're mentoring somebody outside, then I'm certain that would count for sure. Hopefully, I answered that question, Mr. Feetham. Can include some more. These are the kind of questions, when we have these questions, we're putting together a frequently asked questions document that will supplement our CPD guideline. So we'll have much more info. And let me say, this is the first time it's mandatory to have, it will be for our registrants to report CPD. In the past, it was somewhat mandatory. We're not going to be Jim the Hammer Shapiro here coming down on people and being very, very tough, because we know there is a bit of a learning process involved in feeling out how some of the categories and what counts, what doesn't count, and making sure we provide good information to registrants on that. So we are going to be working on developing more content and providing support. So we're not just going to send this out and January 1st start booting people out. That's not the intent. So I'm going to move along. I think I addressed most of the questions. What's new? So there's some things that are new. Here's a big one. So we've gone from 80 hours a year down to 30 hours a year. That's a big one. So if you take out that professional practice hours, which was 50 previously, that's a big reason for that. So you'll see that that reduction. As I mentioned, the removal of professional practice hours. So now you can have unlimited hours in any category, where in the past you couldn't. And if I've had some questions, some comments, some concerns that you could truly not have any technical CPD at all and still be in compliance with this program. And people say, well, how can they still be licensed as a professional engineer if they don't have any technical? And the answer is there's some people who they're not involved in technical roles or involved in the leadership of engineering or management of engineering, which would be having leadership and communication training is much more relevant than having technical training. So that's a reason for that. You could debate it back and forth, but this is kind of what I think it's much more fair and equitable for registrants regardless of their type of practice. I see a comment or I'm not sure comment or question, hoping that many of our military courses can be included into CPD. The military has its own women's courses. Again, I don't care where you're getting your CPD from, if it's from the military or from an outside provider. It's again, we don't approve providers. So as long as it's a good quality program, then yeah, no problems there. What's new about the program? Continuing hours are on a 1-to-1 ratio. So yeah, in the past there was 2 hours 2-to-1, which didn't make any sense. So again, that's gone. Here's one where it's not mandatory for EITs to participate, but they're encouraged to still. And it's not mandatory in the previous, or wasn't mandatory to enter or report CPD hours, but there's a massive majority of EITs were. We're encouraging EITs to continue to report and track their CPD opportunities. We know in courses, we know that during the first 4 years of their practice, as they're getting experience, engineers in training, all they're doing is professional development. They are gathering information. They are they're taking courses. They're doing all the things. They're getting CPD. So that's been a direction for a lot of other regulators have not had EITs responsible for reporting CPD for a long time. So that's the direction that we're moving in this. So yeah, so it's good. It's good news for many who don't need to, but I still encourage you to report and track your CPD, because it'll be much easier when you become a P.Eng. But we won't be auditing or getting into those kind of things for EITs. We have a new learning management platform I'm going to touch on in a little bit. Exciting. As I said, reporting through the website will be required, not just asking for records to be kept. There's a question about taking university courses towards a MSc. How do you calculate hours? We'll get into that more in the guideline. If we don't have it now, we'll have to provide more information on that. But it's courses are one-on-one. So if you're taking courses, whether they're masters or otherwise, they would count on a one-on-one basis. So yeah. Is there any connection, somebody asked, with my friend Jim Simmons, with local universities or colleges to audit or participate in ethical practice courses? I don't know if you're asking if we're asking other universities to create those, but if they do have courses on ethical practice, they would count towards their program. So I don't know if you had follow up on that, Jim, but I'm going to move on to try and make sure we make it through these things. So there will be an audit program that we're developing our policies and procedures for that, which that won't be in place until sometime in 2026, after we've gone through a reporting cycle, and then we'll have a random selection. So that's, again, a standard requirement for any CPD course programs. And excess hours may be carried over for 1 year. So if you have more than 30 hours, you can carry them over. Our current system doesn't allow for carryovers. We're actually in the process of replacing it, which I'll talk about more. But in our new system, which is actually aligned with the other Atlantic regulators. We're hoping there's going to be better functionality there. We're working on it right now. So as far as reporting goes, some of you, I know everybody, and I'm hoping it's been a while since we put this in place. I'd say hopefully all of us go and log in to our member and company login, our profile on an ongoing basis, but that's where we're driving, and we have had CPD reporting for a long time now, and that's where you go to get your invoice, to attend events, all those kind of things. So if you haven't been on there, I'd suggest you do, and keep an eye on there and see if there's any new updates to the system. We will be replacing our system at the end of the year, hopefully by October 1st, before annual billing comes out. You'll see that. I see there's some questions, but I'm going to get through this section and then hit them all at the end, if that's okay, just to make sure I get through the content. So I highlighted here, this is me logged in as myself. If you haven't been on for a while, you'll see there's some new features that we've added. So this is really been updated to reflect the 2025 reporting requirements. So you can see here, once you log in, you'll be taken into a dashboard. CPD tracking is circled there in red. That's where you will go, and it'll show, initially it'll show, as you see, the 2025 PD summary, and I'm highlighting the categories here so to kind of make our current system work for the new modernized program. We just put in for now all the 2025 or the categories that you report. If you've already reported 2025 hours in our system under one of the other categories, that's okay, but trying to make sure that people kind of go report it in the right categories, because that's going to be important once we get into auditing and those kind of things. There's a bigger blowout of our screen, which just shows, and I've updated these categories just this morning to show some of the differences in the categories between 2025 and before 2025. So you'll see the previous categories, we can't delete them because there's information that's in there already. And again, if you entered info, it's a bit cumbersome, but it's the only way we could kind of do this before we have a new system in place. So you'll see some of the previous categories and the new categories are there. And I'm going to touch on non-resident CPD exemption in a couple slides from now. But a question I often get from people is they say, I don't see anywhere I can enter my current or past PD opportunities that I've taken. And it's when you log into the system and you're looking at this screen, if you see the PD summary screen, you need to go down and you'll see the add new box there is where you need to select add new, and then you can enter in your activities, which I'll show you the next screen. But that's key, because 99% of people who say I can't enter my past PD events or any of this year, they're not showing up, that's where you need to go and enter it. Remember, add new. Seems like it should be simple, but it's hard. So you need to scroll down and hit that button. So once you do hit add new, you're brought to this screen. This is where, for example, if you look at regulatory learning, I kind of highlighted that, and this is where you would enter in I attended. So if you go to another engineering regulator, or you take a session on some other kind of regulatory session, you would enter in the description, the start date, end date, number of hours, which is 1-to-1 now. If you had a certificate or method of completion, you could upload that. On the right hand side, you'll see it shows some of the, and this is straight from our guideline, it shows a bit more information about the category. And again, remember I said we don't certify or approve CPD course providers, so it's an important one, but you can see a list of opportunities on our website. There's I'll talk about that in a little bit. So that's what it looks like now, and this is all going to change when we get our new system, but for now, until October, this is what it's going to look like. Any information you enter will transfer over to our new system, so don't be worried about that. And another good thing, there may be some of you who practice in multiple provinces, And something that's been a positive enhancement for all CPD programs in the last a little while was recognizing programs from other provinces. So if you're a non-resident, so if there's people who, for example, if you're not living in Nova Scotia, say you're living in Ontario and you're registered in Ontario and you would be exempt from reporting your CPD hours in Nova Scotia. The same would go for other provinces as long as they've signed on to this MOU, which most of the other engineering regulators have agreed to accept reports from other provinces. It's still a bit of a work in progress, and some provinces are still figuring out how to facilitate that. But in Nova Scotia, we do accept others' CPD requirements now, and there's a pretty slick way we do it. You may have seen it in the previous slide, but if you're a non-resident registrant, there may be some on the call. When you enter, all you need to do is simply enter in one category. So it says 2025 non-resident PD exemption. So if you click on that, enter in that you're a member in good standing in New Brunswick or PEO, Ontario or Alberta, put in your number. And if you live in that province, not Nova Scotia, then you can become exempt from reporting CPD here. And there's a disclaimer there, and if we do find out somebody says they're in good standing in one province, not in another, there's going to be some other ethical challenges that we'll have to deal with. But that's what we put in place now. And we've actually been exempting non-resident engineers practicing in that are registered in other provinces since 2015. So for us, it's not a big change. However, we have formalized things now a bit in our system to allow for this. So it's still a bit of a work in progress. And we have a learning management platform, which is in place. And this is one of the things that, in collaboration with our Atlantic counterparts, and this was led by Newfoundland again, they had a learning management system. It's based on a Moodle platform, if anybody has been involved in using those in the past. So for us now, we have just gone to implement single sign-on for that. You can log in, and you can see here on the screen the external apps section. You have a one-time approval. You have to approve and give permission to share some information with Moodle, which will allow you to simply log into the member and company login area and go right into the learning management platform after you've done this in the first time. And it's really, you're only sharing your first name, last name, and email address securely, and you can remove that at any time. So it's a pretty good process to access that. There's also a link you can take, which is on our website, that you can also click to access that. So if you go in, you're logged into the learning to the member and company login area. Under external apps, you'll see this learning platform. If you click accept on that, or you click anytime, it will bring you right into it. And what does it look like? Here's what it looks like. So it's our way that we're able to collaborate and share PD courses between Newfoundland, New Brunswick, Nova Scotia, and PEI doesn't have any yet, but they will in the future. So you'll see there are courses up there. There's a previous version of this course that was created that will be updated to provide information on the CPD program. And we will be creating new content here and uploading it annually. So we'll make sure that you're able to, for those mandatory hours, view and take these courses to fulfill those hours. That's our commitment. And the other regulators, Newfoundland, New Brunswick, and PEI, will also be developing content on a regular basis and uploading that. So that's a great thing for us. Currently, with the way our system is in transition, we're working on this new database that will manage our whole business, and hopefully we'll have that in place in the fall of 2025. It's our goal. So currently, if you take a course through the learning management platform, you'll have to go back in and update that you've taken it through the member and company login area of our website. But in the future, we're going to build it. I say we're going to work towards building it, maybe not in the initial launch, but we're going to build it so that you'll be able to, you won't have to do anything. If you take a course, we're going to have it so there's that integration where it will update our back end and you won't have to do anything further. So we're going to be working on that to make sure we have that in place. I do see the questions. I'm going to get to those in a few minutes, so hold tight. So what's next? So we're going to continue to develop audit and reporting policies, processes, things we can help support our registrants. We're going to develop more content for the LMP. So any sessions that we can record. We're also going to look at developing more custom content, which would have a bit of a interactive participation and maybe some questions, those kind of things, which is one of the benefits of this learning management platform. It will give us the ability to test and ask questions throughout, which is always a good thing. And like I say, any of the sessions we put on there, you can't fast forward through either. So you get a certificate of participation after, and you don't get that unless you actually view it, or I guess you could leave it running and do something else, but we encourage you to do that. We're going to develop additional support content. We know we need to do that to give better information to support the guidelines. So frequently asked questions, documents, those kind of things, to help registrants in their in understanding our program and supporting them. And we're going to work with you. We're not going to expect that this is something that's going to, you're going to be able to do all this right out the gate. So we're going to support that. And our CPD committee, we're re-engaging them. We haven't been too active in the last little while, but it's going to be, they're going to be asking them to help be the voice of the registrant and give us feedback on some of the documentation that we support. So be working on that. As far as resources, we do have on our CPD page, it's been recently updated, guidelines on there. There's also additional PD resources, which are not approved or endorsed by us, but there are opportunities you can click on and gain other access to webinars, those kind of things. So so you can go there to our new CPD guideline page. You can access the learning management platform, and if you're having, I see there's people saying I don't see the tab external apps on my screen. If you go to the website under CPD program, and under that there's a learning management platform, and click on that, that may help you access it for the first time as well. So we're working through some of the nuances of access to the learning management platform, but we are going to be developing content, and there is a bunch of stuff on there now. So if we'll make sure that you can get on there, and we are Christine LaRocque and our comms team is developing some content for you to be able to access that. So if there are problems with accessing it, we'll make sure those are worked out. Go to the event section of our website. You did that to register for this event, and there's lots more that our professional sustainment team is working on developing and revitalizing our offerings for webinars, and they're having at least once a month now, as well as a number of resources from other areas. So yeah, so we're gonna keep offering more events. And finally, our PD conference 2025, hold the date, is Tuesday, October 21st. It's going to be in a new location at the Halifax Tower Hotel, which is not in downtown Halifax. It's up, I think it's been Bayers Lake. So it's have a hard time finding space around the city. It's a new area, easy to get to for those outside of the city, easy to free parking, all that kind of stuff. So we're hoping we're going to see a huge turnout and have a lot of really good sessions for you at that. So stay tuned on that. We'll have more information. We're kicking off actually this week. There's a kickoff meeting. So so yeah, we're looking to have some great sessions there, as we always do. That's it for me. I see there are some questions that I'll try to look at. And if you have others, if you want to put your hands up, and I'll work to address them. We have 8 minutes left, so we're on time, on budget so far. We'll see how that goes. Back to the questions. There's if people are thinking of other questions in the chat. Are you aware if Alberta and Saskatchewan have signed on to the MOU for CPD reporting exemption? It's a good question. I'm not sure if they have. I'm not sure if Alberta has. I believe Saskatchewan has, but we'll put an updated list together. It's kind of a moving target, so we'll figure that information out and provide that to you. There's a question about carryover for 1 year applied to EITs that have recorded CPD hours. That's that's a great question. We haven't thought that through yet because it really wasn't mandatory to report. So I would say, thinking now, no, but I think that's an area yes, we will provide a more definitive answer. And the answer may change. Yes. So thanks for that question. Those are the types of questions that we're working on making sure we have addressed. So thanks for that question, Hayden. Exemption is in place for other provinces as well. I think that's from Jorn asked that. So yeah, and it depends on the other province. I know that for Nova Scotia residents, for New Brunswick and Newfoundland, Labrador, they will, especially since we're now have a modernized program. So starting next year, they will provide exemptions and they will have information on their website. So it may not be for 2025, but in the near future, they'll definitely be. They're definitely as part of our Atlantic harmonization that we're doing. They'll be ones that they will exempt for sure. There's some questions around external tabs not appearing on the screen. Again, if you go to our website, you can click and a link. It may not show there if you haven't done it the first time. You may need to go through different routes. We'll have to work through that. Which CPD category is best suited to capture the recent town hall meeting sessions? I think for those sessions, those would be regulatory, and I think actually in the meeting content it would or should have said this counts as 1 hour towards regulatory, because that's what it is. It's regulatory update. So yeah, it would definitely be regulatory. I see a question: do courses taken to get a certification, for example, whatever, count towards? So CIET or AFE courses count towards technical learning? I would say yes, for sure. If you're taking them to get a certification, they're technical courses. Certainly they would. I see Jordan Lee asked a question about training, first aid. Do other non-HR internal health and safety training sessions like fall arrest, tag out, hydraulic safety? Conrad Liliev would be happy you asked that question. Yes, for sure they would count. That's those are, anything related to those type of safety issues would definitely 100% count. 100%. And we have offered a ton of in-person and web sessions on fall arrest and lockout tagout in the past. So yeah, definitely would count. Would a career fair to high school count? Depends on what you're doing. If you're talking about engineering and mentoring others to join engineering, I would say it would count. Sure. Could you carry over 27 hours from 1 year to the next if you log 57 hours? Yeah, I need to look at the guideline on that, but yeah, in theory you could carry it over 1 year for sure. That's what carryover is, and said there's no max. So yeah, some hours. I see Andrew Nicholson asked, you mentioned that some hours could be carried over from 1 year to the next. Can CPD hours from your first year of licensure were CPD hours? No, I'm going to say hard no, just because it wasn't required to submit CPD hours. So it's going to be January 1st, 2025. So moving on an ongoing basis from that. Got to draw a line in the sand here somewhere. Sid Call asked a question which I addressed, but he must not have heard it. Is a platform linked to tracking? It's not now, but in the future we're working, so it will be. As I mentioned, we're going to a new database, so now you have to enter in your any courses you've taken, which in the future you won't have to. It's going to be, I say you won't have to. We have to build it, but it will be manually. Would learning, improving your French or another language count towards CPD? That's a great question. If speaking French is part of your job, then or part of your communication, perhaps. I think that's an area we need to probably highlight a bit more and create as a FAQ. So stay tuned on that one. But that's a good question. We haven't. I don't know if it's addressed, but we'll make sure that it is addressed. So. And that's the beauty of having this recorded. We can go back and gather some of these questions. That is all the questions that I saw on the chat. Does anybody have any other questions related to CPD, learning management platform, even light professional practice or ethics questions? I would take it. We have 2 minutes left. If you had a question, I'd be glad to take it. If not, I'll let you get 2 minutes of your day back. I see a question. Go ahead, Ahmed.
I have a question about if my organization does not offer me to do all the training, is there another way that I can get as much training as I can, like a free training instead of paying for it out of pocket?
100%. Most training is not, you don't have to pay any money for. Go to our
Okay.
online learning management platform. Everything's free. Webinars
Okay.
free. Podcasts free.
Perfect. And that would all-
Just a lot of people think that they need to take courses and pay money to get CPD, which is not the case.
Gotcha. All right. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah, good question.